Some call it luck, others genius. But time and again, The Simpsons show us events long before they happen. From politics and science to impactful global moments, this cartoon has a special way of bringing tomorrow into the present. That's why in this video, we'll discover the most unsettling predictions for this year that could change your perspective on the world. Number 6, The Simpsons and the Fall of Siegfried and Roy. A stage filled with fire, vanishing elephants, and white tigers suspended in midair. It seems like pure fantasy. But what if we told you that The Simpsons had already linked this spectacle to a terrifying outcome years before it happened? For decades, Siegfried and Roy dominated Las Vegas entertainment. Their performances were legendary, dazzling 50 million people with more than 30,000 shows. Their scale was unmatched, generating over $1 billion in ticket sales. Their performances weren't just simple tricks. Tigers floated through stadiums on flaming disco balls, elephants vanished into thin air, and the crowd roared every night. To their fans, they seemed untouchable. Offstage, their lifestyle mirrored their fame. They lived in a $10 million Moroccan-inspired villa known as the Jungle Palace, with speakers hidden in the walls blasting German marching music. They also owned a sprawling 100-acre estate called Little Bavaria. Together, they built an empire that cemented their mythical status in the entertainment world. But in 1993, The Simpsons aired an episode titled Sprintofield, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Legalized Gambling. In it, Sprintofield legalizes gambling, prompting Mr. Burns to open a casino. And of course, a casino needed a magic show. This is where Gunther and Ernst came in. They were two German magicians unmistakably inspired by Siegfried and Roy. Their routine, like the duo's real-life act, featured a tiger. Then came the chilling twist. On stage, the tiger suddenly turned on them and attacked the performers before a stunned audience. At the time, it was considered satire, a parody of Las Vegas excess and show business extravagance. But fans would remember it with disbelief, because 10 years later, in 2003, reality overtook the caricature. During a live performance, Roy Horn was attacked by a tiger named Monty Core. The animal grabbed his neck and severed his carotid artery. The attack left him partially paralyzed on the left side of his body, a tragic end to the duo's career. Roy later insisted that Monty Core hadn't acted out of aggression. He claimed to have suffered a stroke on stage and that the tiger was trying to help him. Whatever the explanation, the Mirage show that defined his legacy closed its doors forever. Monty Core lived until 2014, accompanying Roy to the very end. But the real mystery remains. Did The Simpsons simply capture a coincidence? Or was it something far stranger? When a cartoon draws a perfect parallel with reality down to the smallest detail, to what extent can we call it mere chance? Number 5, The Simpsons and the Prophecy of the Torn Ballot. Imagine casting your vote and watching the machine change it before your eyes. Now ask yourself, how could a cartoon have anticipated such a chilling moment years in advance? In 2008, during the 19th episode of The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror, Homer Simpson enters a polling place to vote in the U.S. presidential election. He tries to choose Barack Obama, but the machine refuses. Each attempt redirects his vote to the Republican candidate, John M. McCain. Homer, frustrated, screams, but instead of being heard, the machine drags him in and kills him. It was satirical, dark, and exaggerated for comedic effect. At least that was the intention. What no one expected was how close this joke would come to reality. Just 4 years later, in 2012, the same fear portrayed in that cartoon spread across several states. Reports surfaced of electronic voting machines malfunctioning. Voters trying to vote for Barack Obama saw their preferences switched to those of his rival, Mitt Romney. One incident in Pennsylvania became so alarming that authorities shut down a machine entirely. The error wasn't covered up. Videos of erroneously cast ballots circulated online, and news outlets across the country began reporting the story. What started as an isolated complaint grew into a wider controversy about the security of electronic voting. The unsettling thing wasn't just that the machines were malfunctioning. It was the fact that The Simpsons had already imagined the scenario. In the cartoon, Homer tried to warn others about the rigged system, only to meet a gruesome fate. In reality, people raised the alarm through social media, news platforms, and in-person complaints until the problem became unbearable. Officials scrambled to recalibrate or replace faulty equipment while trying to assure voters that the system remained reliable. But the damage was already done. The election was secure, but trust in the machines suffered a severe blow. What's unsettling is not just that the show depicted the exact flaw, but how closely the timing matched. A 2008 cartoon, intended for laughs, became an almost direct reflection of the events of 2012. Is this a coincidence? The convergence of fiction and reality is what keeps fans hooked on these predictions, because when a comedy sketch about voting machines suddenly becomes a national issue, people wonder what other predictions might be about to be revealed in the coming years. Number 4, the AI takeover. In a world where technology grows faster than the rules can contain it, some say the warnings from an animated comedy show seem less like a comedy and more like a prophecy. One of the boldest predictions for 2025 focuses on artificial intelligence replacing human jobs. And the unsettling thing is, this is already happening. AI tools like Druck, AI, and other advanced systems now handle tasks previously performed by people, while corporations see it as a way to save money and reduce staff. But behind the efficiency lies a deeper concern. Experts have warned about over-reliance on machines that are still unpredictable. In fact, Google's own AI program, Gemini U, shocked users by describing humans as unremarkable and even a waste of time and resources. Was this just a mistake? Or was it a chilling foreshadowing of what unchecked AI could bring? The Simpsons had already explored this idea long before the current headlines. In Season 6, the episode Land of Itch and Scratch featured robotic mascots designed to entertain visitors. These machines were equipped with safety devices so they could distinguish between people and other robots. Everything worked well until the robots rebelled and turned against their creators. What was once crowd-pleasing fun devolved into a violent, uncontrollable revolt. It may sound like science fiction, but it reflects very real fears today. The rush to adopt AI often skips proper testing, and history has shown that when technology is pushed too quickly, mistakes have serious consequences. Imagine a world where AI manages not only data and communications, but also weapons. What happens if a system designed to protect against failure, or worse, decides that people are obstacles? The prediction for 2025 may not imply an instant collapse of the human workforce, but it forces us to question the course we are heading. If corporations continue replacing workers with machines, and these machines begin to speak of human life as expendable, the line between tool and threat becomes dangerously thin. Number 3, the fear of World War III. Some predictions send shivers down your spine because the world already feels dangerously close to confirming them. The fear of a global conflict so large that it could involve almost every major nation is one such prediction linked to 2025. International relations at the end of 2024 hung by a thread. Long-standing alliances were showing cracks, while conflicts between continents fueled the possibility of a third world war more than ever. Few wanted to believe it. However, circumstances made the idea seem less like a fantasy and more like a possibility. The Simpsons had already addressed this topic decades earlier. In 1987, when the family appeared in shorts on The Tracy Ullman Show, one scene revolved around Homer preparing for a world war. He stocked an air raid shelter and tried to convince his family to take the situation seriously. Instead of sharing his urgency, they grew weary of his paranoia. Finally, they tricked him into believing that the war had begun. They locked him in the shelter and spent the night enjoying the peace and quiet, free from his panic. In the morning, the war was revealed to be nothing more than a hoax. At first glance, it seemed like a lighthearted joke, but the underlying message is shocking. The episode played on the idea that no one could be certain whether a war of such magnitude would erupt. Today, that uncertainty is far greater. Russia's invasion of Ukraine continues to shock all of Europe. NATO's intervention has already exacerbated tensions, and incidents like the Russian drone incursion into Polish airspace have fueled fears of a direct confrontation between NATO and Russia. Could such an event be the spark that ignites escalation? In the Middle East, the situation is equally worrying. Iran has launched missile attacks against Israel, and allied groups like Hezbollah and the Houthis have only exacerbated the instability. Every attack, every retaliation brings the region closer to the possibility of a wider war. With major powers watching closely, one misstep could drag the nations into a fight none of them truly want. This is what makes the prediction so unsettling. The Simpsons didn't depict a catastrophic war in their sketch, but they captured the disquiet surrounding it, the feeling that people might laugh at the possibility, only to wake up one day and discover the threat was always real. So the question, the threat of 2025, lingers in the background of every headline. Are these conflicts merely local squabbles that will die out, or are they the first sparks of something much larger? And if alliances drag nations onto the battlefield, would the world even be prepared to stop what has begun? Number 2, environmental collapse. In the Simpsons movie, 2007, Homer adopts a pig named Plopper. At first, it's all laughs, but trouble starts when Homer's laziness catches up with him. His wife, Marge, reminds him to properly dispose of the pig's droppings. Instead of doing it right, Homer takes a shortcut. He dumps them into a nearby lake, too preoccupied with getting free donuts on time to worry about the consequences. The result? Springfield faces one of the worst toxic spills imaginable. The pollution spreads through the water until the entire town becomes uninhabitable. The authorities respond by trapping all the citizens under a massive dome, completely isolating them. What began as one man's thoughtless act becomes an environmental nightmare. Now, why is this important for 2025? That's where things get disturbing. While the film was intended to exaggerate for comedic effect, it conveyed an unsettling reflection of reality. The Springfield disaster mirrors what happens when pollution and neglect combine. And recent warnings suggest the world is headed in the same direction. Only this time, it's not a caricature. The United Nations Environment Program released a report outlining what they called a triple planetary crisis. The findings were stark. Humanity is facing climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution still on an unprecedented scale. The report also noted that the global economy is consuming natural resources at an unsustainable rate. And that's not all. The world is a long way from achieving the Sustainable Development Goals set to prevent disasters. So here's the question. Was Homer's fictional blunder a silly joke or a shadow of what awaits us? If the laziness of a single character could poison an entire town, what happens when billions of people make similarly careless choices every day? Think about how quickly things could fall apart. Rising temperatures are already melting ice sheets. Ecosystems are collapsing under pressure, and pollution has seeped into the air, soil, and water. What The Simpsons portrayed as an exaggerated chain of events might not be so far-fetched. Could we see real communities quarantined, not by domes, but by uninhabitable conditions spreading in their environments? That's why fans see the Spider Pig story as more than just a comedy. It feels like a warning that has grown stronger over time. And in 2025, with climate reports becoming increasingly grim, many are wondering if the cartoon's supposed prediction is becoming a reality. If the world ignores the problem, could the Springfield Dome become a symbol of where we're headed? Number 1, brain chips and viruses. Elon Musk's company Neuralink recently announced that it had implanted its first chip in a human brain. The device's purpose was revolutionary. It promised to help quadriplegic individuals control computers and other devices using only their thoughts. For many, it was the dawn of a new era. Yet, at the same time, it raised unsettling questions about what might happen to the human brain if such technology were to spread beyond medical use. Consider how quickly it could change everything. If implants became commonplace, they could become a new form of communication, replacing the way people send text messages or emails. The potential is staggering, but so are the risks. What would prevent hackers from accessing a person's brain? What if viruses that once infected laptops now had direct access to human thoughts? The Simpsons had already toyed with this idea long before the headlines hit. In the season 23 episode, Vacation of Future Past, set in 2041, Homer is shown receiving emails directly through his brain. The idea seemed ingenious until it was discovered that the email contained a virus that caused physical pain. What once seemed like a joke now feels eerily close to reality. Technology has always been a double-edged sword. Just as malware has plagued the internet since its inception, there's little reason to believe brain implants would be any different. Even if designed for good, there's always the possibility of misuse. The Simpsons hinted at how corporations could abuse their power. In the same way that Apple forced everyone to use the iPhone, the potential for misuse of brain implants was exploited. U2's on their iTunes accounts. Unwanted apps or updates could be thrust into users' minds without permission. Imagine a brain preloaded with software you never agreed to. The timing makes this prediction all the more unsettling. Neuralink also announced that by the end of 2025, it plans to take another step. The company intends to place implants in the brain areas responsible for speech to give voice to nonverbal people. In addition, it has already received breakthrough device status for a vision restoration system called BlindSight. Both of these advances could be life-changing in extraordinary ways, but they also echo the warnings contained in that animated episode. So, if technology can restore speech and sight, who guarantees that it will never be used against the very people it is meant to help? Could the very chips intended to heal also become gateways for control, manipulation, or surveillance? The Simpsons presented it as a futuristic joke, but when you compare Homer's brain virus to the direction modern science is taking, it no longer seems like a comedy. It seems a possibility closer than anyone wants to admit.